Ron Paul and the Fed. Dive into the intricacies of the Federal Reserve, America's central bank, with the thought-provoking book And the Fed, by Ron Paul. This summary will guide you through the complexities of the institution's purpose, how it functions, and the consequences of its monetary policies. Explore the history of the Fed and its impact on economic cycles, wars, and political agendas. Discover the reasons behind the author's argument for abolishing the Fed and the potential benefits that could result, challenging the widely held belief that the Fed is essential to maintaining a stable economy.
The truth about the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, often hailed as the backbone of the American economy, is responsible for maintaining a stable economy, regulating banking organizations, and managing inflation. However, the Fed's true purpose is to create money out of thin air, a power unique to the institution. This book challenges the notion that the Fed is essential to economic stability and instead argues for its abolishing. The book sheds light on the history of the Fed, the concerns with its operations, and its impact on the American people. It examines how ending the Fed could prevent needless wars, stabilize the dollar, stop uncontrolled government growth, and curb attacks on American civil liberty. The author insists that closing down the Fed would reinstate constitutional government, put an end to inflation, secure Americans' wealth, protect their deposits, and restore sanity to the economic and political landscape. The book highlights the importance of questioning the Fed's actions amidst growing concerns about hyperinflation and its secrecy in decision-making. The author contends that doubling the money supply during the 2008 emergency could lead to price escalations, indebtedness, and ultimately, economic instability. The role of banks in society. Banks are responsible for safeguarding deposits and lending deposited money, creating fractional reserves. However, this system creates a risk of a bank run if depositors demand their money at once. In a truly free market, banks should not commingle these functions. The Fed provides liquidity to banks during systemic panics, but this creates the problem of banks becoming too big to fail, leading to a moral hazard that removes the risk of bankruptcy. This puts the government in control of personal financial transactions and creates a half-socialized system. The truth about the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is not an essential part of the U.S. economy, and its creation was the result of a push by government, banks, and businesses. Despite attempts to establish central banking in the past, inflation and skepticism of paper money were prevalent. The Fed's purpose is to generate inflation, and its rescues have averted many bank failures. However, this guarantees against bankruptcy promotes wastefulness, ineptitude, and excessive risk-taking. Consumers must take responsibility for vetting their banks and saving deposits, instead of relying on the government. The elastic supply of money and its effects on war. The establishment of central banks led to an elastic supply of money, which gave governments an unlimited amount of funding. This financial freedom allowed nations to pick fights and start wars, leading to a continual arms race, military expansion, and almost constant war. World War I began only a year after the U.S. established the Fed, and the U.S. entered the war in 1917, using government borrowing and outright money creation to pay for 79% of war expenses. The consequences of this financial policy are made clear in the statement, "Bad economic policy can destroy a civilization." The Fed's manipulation of politics and the economy. The Federal Reserve's power to print money inevitably leads to political maneuverings, with elected officials behaving like college students on spring break. The Fed's ability to manipulate interest rates is particularly useful during election periods, as demonstrated when Chairman Arthur Burns cut interest rates to ensure his reappointment when Jimmy Carter became president. The Exchange Stabilization Fund, a secret slush fund, is used for bailouts and intervening in the gold markets. The Fed kept rates too low for too long, leading to the housing bubble. The economic crisis beginning in 2007 shows that the market was not free at all but manipulated and distorted. Ongoing deficits and government borrowing will result in $163,000 of future incremental taxes for each American household, according to economist Michael Boskin. 4 arguments for ending the Federal. The book presents 4 compelling cases for ending the Federal Reserve System. The philosophical argument is that the Fed's monopoly power to create money and control interest rates is immoral and has encouraged Americans to live beyond their means. The constitutional argument contends that the Founding Fathers opposed paper money and that the U.S. Constitution forbids states from issuing their own paper currencies. The economic argument asserts that America's credit and money markets are socialist because the Fed controls the money supply and interest rates, which inhibits free markets. The libertarian case argues that the government's interventions in American lives ironically lead to less freedom, especially for the poor and middle class who suffer from inflation caused by social programs and wars. The book argues that the Fed has created a coalition of government and big business that benefits from stimulus spending and bailouts, leading to the economic takeover of America. Monetary devaluation and the downfall of empires. The Byzantine Empire's collapse is a poignant example of the dangers of monetary devaluation. The gold Byzantine currency was reliable for 600 years until the emperor reduced its gold content to fund a war. This led to a loss of confidence in the currency, causing the empire to crumble. The book argues that the Federal Reserve should be abolished as it promotes bad economics, undermines liberty, and concentrates economic power in the hands of a few. Without the Fed, banking services will continue, and credit and interest rates will reflect the economy's productive capacity.
As we reach the end of our exploration of End the Fed, we are left with Ron Paul's compelling argument that the Federal Reserve is hindering America's financial future. By removing the Fed's power to manipulate interest rates, create money out of thin air, and engage in secretive practices, the nation could benefit from a resurgence in constitutional governance, increased economic stability, and decreased dependence on welfare programs. This shift could ultimately free the market, curb uncontrolled government growth, and restore sanity to economic and political life. Weigh the pros and cons of the Fed, question its indispensability, and challenge conventional beliefs on the path toward a more secure and prosperous future.